So instead of the deadline being here, we want the deadline to be right over here. Now, if I were to select completed, nothing's going to happen, and that's because it's now pointing to the wrong row. So all we need to do here is we need to add 1 to every single one of these options. So I'll start at the top, and now instead of pointing to column 3, we need to point to column 4 because that's where our triggers are now held. Since we didn't add anything, we only reorganized things, the timestamp will appear in the same column. If you were to add a new column beforehand, you'll need to add 1 to this as well, but since we're simply reorganizing, we don't need to. Now originally the task details was in column 2. Since the date is before the task list, we need to change this from column 2 to column 3. And then same thing down here. Now the trigger is going to be in column 4 for every single one of these. So now everything's good to go there. But before we run it, we need to update everything else. So for example, the park tab, all we need to do is drag this over to be in front of the task list. Combine list, we need to drag this over to be in front of the task list. Now you can see right here we have an error, but before we fix that, I'm going to go ahead to our recurring tab and change the deadline to before task list. And before the done tab, change the deadline to before task list. We'll fix this here in a second as well. All right, now going back to the combine list, you can see that now the formula is working. And that's why it's important to not prematurely adjust things, because the issue was simply that the done tab was not updated, but the task list was. So everything's good to go right there. Now, since we didn't add any new columns, all we needed to do with the recurring task is just update the deadline to the new area. So nothing is needed there. So now on the dashboard, in cell A7, we have our formula that prioritizes everything for you. And since everything was shifted, now we need to adjust where everything was. But luckily the query formula is super easy to use, so we can simply take the B, because column B is where the new deadline is. And we're going to delete that, and then after E, where it originally was, because it was originally in column E, we're going to put B. And we're going to do the same thing over here on the second part of the formula. So after E, put B. And now originally, since the deadline was in column E, we want to change this to column B. So where the deadline is not null, that'll be the first part of the equation. And then here we want for column B, where it is null, then we'll change B to column C and press enter. So now it'll work properly. So what this is saying is where B, the deadline, is not null, so it's only going to include anything that has a date. We're going to stack that on top of anything that doesn't have a date, but column C, which is our task details, is not null, meaning that there is a task. So that way it avoids having a bunch of blanks. And this looks very complicated, but essentially you just need to make sure that the new column, if you add a new column, is within this range, and then you can order everything based off of exactly what's there. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put pending and then put completed. And now this should move from this list and go to the bottom of the done tab. And the bottom of the done tab, everything should align exactly as it should with this new location of the deadline. So it's not super hard, you just need to know what you're doing.